Okay, we're on Daf Kuf Kaf Gimel today. We're just going to go back and review the second part of the Mishnah, which we'll be dealing with. We're talking in general about mukseh. Mishnah teaches that one can take a kurnas, a mallet, and use it to crack nuts with. So even though it's something that's usually used for isur, for building, but you can use it if you want to use it for a ted, you're allowed to. And similarly, an axe usually used to chop wood. You can use it to cut a cake of figs, and a saw usually used to cut wood, but you could use it to cut cheese. And then we mentioned a few more things. Ratach, mazleg, you can give to a child with it. We talked about that case already. This we're going to talk about today. Kush takarkar. If you have these pieces of a loom that have a sharp point, reed, a shuttle, you can use it to spear something like a fork. Machat shel yad we'll talk about today. Also, litol bo etakos, a needle. You can use a needle even though it's usually used for sewing. So usually it's used for isur, but if you want to use it to take out a thorn, then you may handle it. All this is talking about mukseh. V'shel sekaim v'tobat hadeleta. Okay. So let's move to here. So a quick intro to the different categories that we're going to be seeing. Really, this stuff is essential, really foundational for understanding the background, the history, the development of the laws of mukseh. So we'll start with these categorizations. Number one is the most lenient is a category of klisha melachto leheter, something that is generally used for permitted use, like let's say a key used to open a door. That's permitted. Now let's say I want to use a key for a different use, like to undo a lid of a jar. Is that allowed? Almost everybody says yes. Once you're allowed to use it, you're allowed to use it. However, we're going to see the Nehemiah says no. You have to use it only for the use that's usually used for. So even klisha melachto leheter has some limitations according to one opinion. But according to everybody else, you can move it no matter what for any reason. Second category is klisha melachto leisur. That's the bunch of examples we just saw, like a hammer or a saw, usually used for building. But if that's so, therefore it's mukseh. However, if you want to use it for heter, to crack open a nut, then that's kind of built into the utensil that I usually use it for isur, but sometimes I use it for heter. So I kind of have that in mind as well, and so therefore I am allowed, according to most opinions, to use it for heter. And now the third category, mukseh mehamad hasron kis, something that we see at the beginning of the stuff we'll show you, and that's something that is as a particular item. It's only used for a specific purpose, or it's expensive item. You wouldn't use it for another purpose. That is very restrictive. And these things are mukseh. You can only use it for that. There's another fourth category that people don't usually categorize, but really you should include it. It's something that's not a kli at all. If it's just a broken piece of pottery, a stone, these things are mukseh because they're not a utensil and they have no use. There is an exception to this, that you are allowed to use it, which we saw, which is if one has to relieve oneself and you have to clean your body. So there, because of kavod haberiyot, right, you might just find yourself on the way somewhere and you don't have anything prepared for cleaning. So then, because of kavod haberiyot, you're allowed to use something that's not a kli. But that's the only exception. Otherwise, these things are mukseh. Okay, so with these four categories in mind, let's look at one of the major rules, which was stated by Rabbah in the previous stuff. He says, "Davar shemelachto leisur, lesorech gufo mutar." Something like a hammer that's usually used for prohibited use. If you're using it because you need it for itself, which means you need it for a heter purpose, then it is permitted. We saw two questions on this. I'm reviewing this because this case is going to come up again and later in the stuff. If I have a mortar, mortar and pestle, right? The mortar is like a bowl. If it has some garlic in it, then you can move it. But if not, you cannot move it. And so this is a question. A mortar is something that's used generally le'isur, for grinding. But now I want to use it for something else. I want to put tahina in it. Can I do that? And so here it says you're not allowed. Why not, Rabbah? You said that if I want to use it ligufo for a permitted purpose, then it's allowed. So how come I'm not allowed according to this Tosefta, Tanaitic authority? Rabbah could answer. He answers. And he says, this Tosefta is the opinion of Rabbi Nechemia, and Rabbi Nechemia says, En keli nital ela lesorech tashmisho. Even a kli shemelachto leheter, I can only use for its designated use. I cannot use it for something else. And that's why that's an extra chumrah here, but everyone else would say that you can use the bowl. A second question. If you use the pestle to cut meat on it. I'm not exactly sure how you cut meat on a pestle. A pestle is just a small rod that you use to smash spices, but I don't know, somehow it would be useful in cutting meat. So on Yom Tov, Betilah is special heter, but that's exceptional. But otherwise, they agree that asur letaltelo, you cannot move it. Well, why not? What if it's kli melachto isur? Let's say I want to use it for heter. So a similar question. Now Rabbah was going to answer the same answer. So but then he heard a different answer. Everyone agrees regarding these launderers, pins, and rods. These are specialty items that he puts in a special place because he doesn't want anyone to use it for anything else. So these are makpid. Also here, the mortar and pestle, you know what? The pestle he uses for a particular use. He doesn't want to use it for, no one would want to use it for anything else. So this falls into the category of mukseh mehamat chesron kis, which is more chamur, and that's the reason. And so now he has a second answer. He doesn't have to claim that these sources are only the Bnei Nechemia. He could say everyone agrees with it by recategorizing these things as specialty items, expensive items. Okay, good. Now, Itemar, Rabbi Chia bar Abba amar Rabbi Yochanan, kurnas shel zehabim shaninu. Rav Shemen bar Abba amar kurnas shel besamim shaninu. Back to the Mishnah, when we said, if you have a hammer, you can use a hammer to crack open nuts. What kind of hammer are we talking about? First opinion of Rabbi Yochanan says, even if it's talking about a hammer of goldsmiths. We have a picture here. Goldsmith is particular about his hammer, and so he wouldn't generally want anyone else to use it because the surface will get all crooked. However, he is actually okay with it. If there's no other hammer around, he would be fine with it, and he can always just bang it on the anvil, and that will make it smooth again. So therefore, even a hammer of a goldsmith you can use to crack open nuts. And Rav Shemen says even one for spices. This is a spice hammer, which generally the person does not want to use for other things because it might give it a bad taste. It might ruin its usual use. But even here, if there's nothing else around, he would permit it. Now we have these two opinions. They don't actually agree with each other. Man damar de besamim kol sheken de zehabim. Man damar shel zehabim abab de besamim kaped alayhu. The second opinion that says you can use this one to open nuts, the spice hammer, all the more so a goldsmith's hammer. Now the spice hammer is even more particular because you don't want it to be to get any bad taste in it. However, the one that says Rabbi Yochanan that says a goldsmith's hammer, he would say this yes, but this one no. The spice hammer is even more particular, and you cannot use that for anything else. Okay, now we go to the next item in the Mishnah, which is this reed or shuttle. That's this thing here that has the string on it that you pass through back and you throw back and forth, and it has a sharp edge. We're going to bring a baraita that shows someone using this item because of its sharp edge to spear something out of the ground. The case is you have unripe figs and you put it in straw. You bury it in straw so that it'll get more ripe. Straw is mukseh. Or a cake that you put inside coals, you wanted it to heat up, the coals are mukseh. Now I want to go and I want to take it out on Shabbat. I want to eat it. So if a little bit of it is exposed, then I can go and pick it up and take the rest out, and the straw or the coals will fall away of themselves. That's okay. I'm only moving them indirectly. If it's completely buried, then nothing I can do about it. I'm not allowed to remove the straw or the coals to take it out. That's the first opinion. Now, Rabbi Elazar ben Tadayin, the same Baraita, adds, Tohabin bakush or bakarkar ve'menarot me'alehem. Even in that case where it's fully covered, I can take this item and reed or shuttle, and I can stick it in and spear it out, and the straw or the coals will just fall away by themselves, and I'm not moving it indirectly, and that's also okay. Amar Rav Nachman, Halakha Rabbi Elazar ben Tadai. Rav Nachman says you can follow this lenient opinion. In fact, now did Rav Nachman really say that? Because he was more machmir another time. Does he agree that moving something in an indirect manner is not considered moving and is permitted? Amar Rav Nachman, Hai pulga milmala lemata share mimata lemala. If I had a radish and I had put it into the dirt to protect it, to save there, if it's right side up, in other words, it's shaped like this. So if it's the big part is on top and I pull it out, so when I pull it out, I'm not moving any dirt, then it's allowed. But if it's upside down, we'll think of a carrot or something, right? And then when I pull it out, it's going to cause the dirt to move, and then it's not allowed. So you see that Nachman says tiltul minasad, indirect moving, is a problem. So we have a contradiction between the Rav Nachman said here and here. Oh, the answer is Hadar be Rav Nachman Mahi. Rav Nachman changed his mind from this Mahmir opinion. It is what he once thought, but now he agrees that Halakha is like a Lazar, and moving something indirectly is okay. Next, we get to the needle. We spoke about needles a bunch before, and this is the main part, main section. Machat shel yad litol ba. You can take a needle. It's usually used for sewing, but you want to get a splinter out. That's fine. Shalach le Rabba bered Rabba le Rav Yosef. Yilameden Rabbeinu machat shenital harara o ksah mahu. Okay, I understand a regular needle is okay, with the one that has an eye and has a point. But what if it broke? What if a broken needle, the point broke off, or the eye broke off? So now the problem is, it's not really a utensil. It was questionable, is it a utensil or not? And if I want to use it to take out a thorn, what is the case? All right, now we're not going to talk much about if this point breaks off, because then you couldn't use it anyway. So that we assume if the point breaks off, then it's probably not a utensil, it's mukseh, but it doesn't matter. So let's focus on the other one. If the eye breaks off, Amale, tinituha. Machat shel yad litol ba'atakos. We have a Mishnah, our Mishnah that we just read. You can take a needle to remove a thorn. Do you think the thorn cares if it has an eye in it or not? He's being sarcastic, right? Obviously, it doesn't matter. The point is that this needle can be used either way, and so therefore it is a utensil. And you're using it, even if it's generally used for isur, now it's being used for heter. So it is permitted, even if the eye fell off. Okay, good. So that seems to be a good answer. That Rav Yosef answered. However, now we have another question. Rava, son of Rabba, asked a question to Rav Yosef about that from a different Mishnah regarding Tum'ah. Machat shenital harara o uksa tehora. Right, we have a Mishnah that says that if a broken needle is tahor, because it's not a utensil anymore, right? A full utensil is obviously would become tameh. But if it's broke, even if it doesn't have an eye, it just doesn't have an eye, it's no longer a utensil. Something that doesn't have a utensil cannot make kabel tumah. So you see, in this a contradiction. You just said it is a utensil, and I'm using it for a ted, so therefore it's okay. Over here in this Mishnah regarding tumah tahara, it says it's not a utensil. If it's not a utensil, then it's certainly mukseh, right? That's the fourth category. Amar Abaye, he has a very simple answer. Tum'ah, a Shabbat karamet. Why, can you compare the laws of Tum'ah to the laws of Shabbat? We saw several times that these laws are compared. Tum'ah, kili ma'aseh ba'inan. L'inyan Shabbat, midi dehazeh ba'inan. Anameh hazel mishkala be'kos. In both categories, there's something called a utensil, but there's different criteria for what is considered a utensil in each. regarding tumah, it has to be a complete functioning utensil. And if it doesn't have an eye, then it's not called that anymore. However, for Shabbat, we have a lesser criteria. Anything that can be used, even if it's not complete, even if it's not the regular functioning item, it's useful. If it's useful, then I kind of have in mind that if I get a thorn, then I'm going to use it. So therefore, there's no contradiction. We're talking about two different categories. That was Abaye's opinion. Rava, however, disagrees. Rava, man kamotiv, shapir kamotiv. He says the person that asked this question, Rava, the son of Rabba, he asked it well. Your answer was not as good as the question. I agree with the questioner. This is the same criteria for both. If something is not a utensil regarding tumah, it's not, and in this case it's not. It's clear from the Mishnah. It's not a utensil for Shabbat either. And so his answer would be that if something is missing an eye, if a needle is missing an eye, then you cannot use it to take out a thorn on Shabbat. It is mukseh, it's not a kli. Okay, so that's what Rava said. We're going to ask a question on Rava, and then actually his friend Abaye is going to answer it. Mahat ben nekuba ben she'enaha nekuba mutar letaltela b'Shabbat. Velo amru nekuba ela linan tum'ah bilbad. Here you go. This braita explicitly distinguishes between the laws of Shabbat and the laws of tum'ah. If I have a needle, whether it has an eye or whether it has a hole, an eye or not, whether it has a hole or not, you can use it on Shabbat. There you go. You can take out a thorn no matter what. When it says nekuba, right, the category of something that has a hole in it, that's only relevant regarding tum'ah. If it has a hole in it, that's good. That's a regular needle. If it has no hole, then it's not a utensil. It's not a needle. So, see, Rava, there is a difference between Shabbat and tum'ah. Okay, Rava does not answer, but Abaye, who disagrees with him, comes and answers. Right, Z, you're keeping a list of these cases? Right, where, okay, you saw a few of them already. All right, so add this to your list. Tergema Abaye aliba de Rava. Right, this shows. I mean, they're arguing back and forth, but they're both interested in finding as many questions and solutions as possible. And so if Rava couldn't defend his own position, Abaye will come and says, I can defend your position. He says, Bigol me askinan. This baraita here, that's talking about the kuba, is talking about an unfinished needle that doesn't yet have a hole in it. It wasn't completed. Sometimes someone says, I'm not going to finish it. I'm going to use it as is. And therefore, it's a kli because he's going to use it as a pin and not as a sewing needle. But something that was completed and had an eye, and then it broke and fell off, no one would keep that. They throw it into the recycling bin with other metals, and so they don't use it again. And so that's the difference between these cases. If something was broken, it's not a kli anymore, according to Rava, not for Shabbat and not for Tum'ah, and therefore I could not use it to take out a thorn. But if it was not finished and doesn't yet have a needle, then I could say, I consider it complete. I'm using this as a pin, and that would be okay. Okay, now we have a bit of a strange case that I guess was done back then, which is if an infant is born with its limbs misaligned or out of place, so they would put them back. They would manipulate the limbs somehow to put them back. What about doing that on Shabbat? Asobe Yenuka, Rav Nachman Asir, Rav Sheshat Shareh. So Rav Nachman said it's not allowed because you're fixing something. Although it's a person, it's also right. Just like if you had a pot or something, if something's out of place, you can put it back together. So to this baby, you're fixing the baby, and so that's why it's not allowed. Rav Sheshet said no, there's no problem. So they each try to bring a proof for their position. Rav Nachman mena amin ala ditnan en osin apik tozin b'Shabbat. So he quotes a Mishnah that says you cannot make this drug that induces vomiting, you cannot use it on Shabbat. And so you see, this is in some way fixing the body for whatever reason why he's doing it. And so you're not allowed to do that. You can't fix the body using this drug. And so too, you can't fix the body with aligning the limbs. You can't compare that. Over there, that's not a normal thing that people do, that they induce vomiting, unless it's a medical thing. And so that's why it's not allowed there as a medical thing. It's not fixing the body. So therefore, there's no problem fixing the body. It's not a category. Whereas here, that's just that is the normal way that you do things. If the baby is out of sorts, you got to put them back together. There's no problem with it. Amar Rav Sheshet, he brings a proof. You see that you can extract a thorn with it, and so you see, even though it's kind of medicinal, it's okay. You're fixing yourself. You're fixing your body by not having a thorn in it, and it's okay. So therefore, you see, you're allowed to fix your body. Nachman hatam pekid achala pekid. So that's different. In that case, the thorn is deposited in your body. You're taking it out, so you're not fixing the body. You're just taking the foreign substance out of it. Whereas in the case of the infant, you are actually fixing it itself, and so therefore it's not allowed. Okay. Now we get to the next Mishnah, which speaks about kaneh shel zetim. We have this reed, it's like a stick, and use it to mix around the olives while you're waiting for them to soften up. And if it has some kind of knot at the end, then it's mikabel tumah, it's considered a utensil. But if not, it's just a straight reed, then it's not mikabel tumah. So that's the law regarding Tumah. However, regarding Shabbat, you can take it. You can use this on Shabbat if you need it. If you need to use it for a heter purpose. So you see, this is interesting because this is a case where Mishnah says there is a difference between the two categories, and the category of Tumah in this case is actually more mahmir, that you're considering it a utensil if it has an item on it. Whereas for Shabbat, for Shabbat also a Shabbat you're considering utensil no matter what. Even if it's just straight, it's still considered utensil. So here again, for Shabbat, we're more expansive in our definition of what is a utensil than in laws of Tumah. Okay, this would seem to prove what Abba said before, what Abaye said before, that you do make a distinction between the two categories. Okay, so now we're asking, Amai, what's wrong with this thing? Why would you say it's mikabel Tumah? Regarding wood, any wooden vessel, there's a general rule that if it's not a container, if you have a wooden vessel that does not contain something, in other words, just a paddle or just a wooden board, even if it's a cutting board, it's not mekabel tumah. It's only mekabel tumah if it can contain something. Why? In the same pasuk, it talks about something that's a sack that which holds something. So therefore, we compare something wood out of something that's a sack. And so in this case, even if it has a knot on the end, just doesn't do anything, it doesn't hold anything. And so why should it be mekabel tumah if it has a knot on the end? We answer, Tana mishmeh de Rabbi Nechemia b'sha'a shemapech bezetim ofcho v'ro'eh. No, that also, when you're mixing it, it can collect a little bit of olive oil at the edge of it, and you take and you examine it and you decide what to do with it. So actually, that knot is considered a small utensil, and that's why it does make a difference. And it's mekabel tumah if it has that knot on the end. All right, that was a short Mishnah. Next Mishnah. Rabbi Yosef Omer, okay, this is an essential Mishnah, very, very important. Rabbi Yosef Omer, Kol HaKelim Nitalin, Chutz Min HaMasar HaGadol, V'yated Shel Maharesha. He says that you can use any utensils when you need to, except two. In other words, this is the most lenient position you're going to find, right? That everything is allowed except for two things. What are the two items that you cannot use? This large saw and the blade of a plow, right? These would be like really big items. I know today would be like a jackhammer. You don't use a jackhammer for anything else. You don't use it to crack open nuts, right? You only use it to open the street. That's it, right? So these are mukseh for sure. Everything else is okay. Wow, that's really quite amazing. Now, a few sages add a few more items and say these are also like these items, right? So these could be categorized as mukseh mechamat chesron kis, right? These are expensive or specialty items you would not use for anything else. You want to make sure that the blade of that plow doesn't get dulled because you want to use it only for that. Also, probably big and heavy things. This item, this launderer's sprinkler, he got a picture here. The launderer would put water in there and sprinkle it while he's ironing or folding. And so this is a specialty item, and he doesn't want to use it for anything else. So therefore, that is also a mukseh item. Also, shoemaker's knife, a butcher's knife, a carpenter's knife. These are all specialty tools, and you wouldn't use them for anything else. So therefore, they're like the plow. Tanu Rabbanan. Barishona hayu. I think I skipped something. V'chasina denagre. Yeah. Okay. Good. Barishona hayu omrim. Okay. So here's a Tosefta that gives us the long history of the laws of mukseh. Way back in the beginning, originally, shelosha kelim nitalin b'Shabbat. Only 3 items you're allowed to use on Shabbat, right? You see, we went from one extreme to the other. The original law is there were only 3 items that were allowed, and then eventually more and more things became mutad until you get to the Biyoseh, where only 2 things are not allowed. What are the 3 things that were allowed? Maksua shel debela vezuhama listeran ve'shel kedera ve'sakin ketana shel gabe shulchan. A knife for cutting that cake of dried figs, the fruit roll-up, and this item, which zuhama listeran, Yonim say it's a spork. It's a half spoon and half fork. Other sources describe it, and seems to come from Greek, zomos, which means soup, and listron, which means spoon, so a soup spoon or a ladle. So that's probably what it is. So a ladle, you kind of need that for eating on Shabbat, and a small table knife. Those are 3 essential items. Those are the only things that, in the original halakha, those are the only things that you can use on Shabbat. The only things, everything else is mukseh. However, that made life very difficult. So hitiru, v'chazru v'hitiru, v'chazru v'hitiru, ad shamru kol hakalim nitalim b'Shabbat. So how many times did they get together and decide leniency? We have once, twice, 3 times, and then yet a 4th time when they said this Mishnah, that everything is allowed except for the 2 big items, the plow and the big saw. Okay, so this is really fascinating because, we know that there's development of halakha, but usually you have to look very carefully and separate the layers and see what happened. Here, this is telling you explicitly all the stages of what happened in the laws of mukseh. So that was all Tosefta.
Do you think they're right?
I do think that. Yeah, I think that this has historical value for sure. Okay, now, but it's a little bit vague, so we're going to try to pin down exactly what happened at each of these stages. I'll tell you one reason why I think they're right is because we find in the Dead Sea Scrolls doesn't say the word mukseh, but does have a concept of various things that you cannot touch. Like rocks and dirt, and over there it's considered deoraita chayav mita, right? Because they only have that category. So this it seems that this was it doesn't say everything, so it's hard to know if it was a bigger category, but it certainly was a category and was a stringent category. So that's just one hint that we can have. Otherwise, we don't have a lot of sources. So I think there is historical truth to this. So what does this mean that each of the stages? We have 2 opinions, Abaye and Rava. We're going to see Rava is more Mekel. He's going to say that each stage they allowed more and more things, and Abaye is a little bit less so. And this will make a difference in Halakha L'Maaseh, which is going to follow Rava. So let's see what they are. Amar Abaye, Hetiru, Davar shemelachto leheter, at the first stage, they said something that is usually used for a heter purpose, you can use it for any other heter purpose. In other words, the halakha originally was what the Rabbi Nechemiah thinks, that even a key you can only use to open doors. You can't use it to pry open a lid. So the first stage, they said you can use it for anything. And then the second stage, also, the second stage is if I have a key on the couch, and I want to sit on the couch, and I want to sit on the key, so I'm allowed to move it because I want its place. And then the third category, the third evolution, something that is used for prohibited use, like a hammer. If I want to use to crack open nuts, that's allowed. But if it's on the chair and I want to sit on the chair, no, I'm not allowed to use it. And that's where they left it. At this stage, still, they said the only utensils you can use are small ones that you can use with one hand. But if it requires two hands to use it, that's a big utensil. Those are no good. And so the fourth stage is even things that you need two hands to use, you can also use on Shabbat. And so that's what he's left with. Says no reason to distinguish between using something because I need to use it or using something because I need the space. So once you put those together, now you can do more at each stage. The first one, at the first stage they said a key you could use not only for opening a door, you can use to pry open a lid, and you can move it from the couch if you want to sit on it. Now he's introducing another reason why you move something. Another reason is because I want to protect the item itself. If I have something that's in the sun and it's going to ruin by staying in the sun, so I'm allowed to move it to protect the item itself. So I have a book or something, it's going to get warped in the sun, so I can move it for itself. So that's the second category. So you see that Rava is going to permit moving it to protect it, whereas Abaye is not going to allow that. And so the third category is chazru v'tiru davar shemachto leisur lesorech gufo u lesorech mekomo in behamal asel la. So the third category is saying a hammer I can move if I want to open nuts and if I want to sit on a chair that has a hammer on it. So you see that Rava allows that, Abaye does not allow it. They agree, however, that you can't move a hammer for its own protection. If I have an iPhone, I lift my iPhone in a bad spot, and it's going to get, I've left on the radiator, it's going to melt. No, you can't move it just for that reason. Okay, so go from and still, even after this third stage, they still said you can only use something that one person can use, a smaller item that one person uses, but something you need two people to operate, that is a big item that you cannot use. So you see now it's about two people, not about two hands, right? So certainly if it's one person and two hands, that was always allowed. But now they're saying even two people. Even if a big item, that requires two people. Okay, so you see that Rava is advancing a lot more in each stage and therefore permits much more. Halakha l'maaseh is like Rava. Now they're going to question each other. Abaye challenges Rava from the case that we started with up in the beginning, medocha, right? The pestle. Im yesh ba shum metartil linotav, im lav en metartil linotah. Oh, see, there you go. A pestle, I can't use it for any other reason. See, I'm right. Oh, why can't you move it for any reason? You can use it for something heter, right? And according to Rava, you can also move it for if you need its place. So Rava says over here that was talking about when I want to move it from the sun to shade, and then that's the only category when it wouldn't be allowed. But otherwise, if I want to move it for the two other reasons, it would be okay. And he asks him further on the second case there, if I want to move the pestle, shouldn't I be allowed? You said, I'm allowed to move it, to use it, or for its place. He said, no, what it's talking about is not allowed to use it here. It's talking about in order to protect it. So both are okay. Okay, here we have now a key historical statement. Amar Rabbi Hanina b'mei Nehemya ben Chachalya nishnet mishna zo. Tichtiv bayamim hahema ראיתי ביהודה דורכים גיטות בשבת ומביאים הערמות. He says all these stringencies that we just mentioned, that everything is prohibited except for the two items, this was instituted at the time of Nehemiah, right, in around 450 BCE. And although Nehemiah, book of Nehemiah doesn't say anything about mukseh explicitly, he does come to Jerusalem from Shushan, and he sees that the people are violating Shabbat, and they're preparing their wine presses and grain, and they're loading it on the donkeys, and they're bringing it to the marketplace to sell on Shabbat. And so he sees that people are violating Shabbat left and right, and so over there it says he closes the marketplace, he closes the gates, and to make sure no one would do that. And so it makes sense because that was a time of a lot of violation of Shabbat, that he would institute all these chumrot to tell people that you can't even touch it, and that way get people away from it. However, afterwards, when people then became more aware of the laws of Shabbat, then the rabbis were able to slowly be more lenient about it. Okay, it's not explicit in Nehemiah, but it's true. He does mention Shabbat. He does emphasize Shabbat. Okay, let's now we have a number of items that now this development can help explain a lot of things, because once you see that there was development, there used to be more machmir, now it's more mekel, we can go back to other sources and say when did they say this, right? Perhaps they said it in a stage where they were machmir, but then that means it wouldn't apply anymore today. So that's Rabbi Elazar, kanin, maklot, gelostera, umedocha. The following four Mishnayot that talk about different items that are mukseh, all those are talking about the law before the leniencies, and that's why they said it's not allowed. But really, according to the updated law, these items would all be allowed. So what are these four items? Kanin, these are the golden rods, itnan, the golden rods that would be used for the shulchan in the Bet HaMikdash. לא סידור הקנין ולא נטילתן דוחה את השבת. So originally the law is that you switch out the lechem every Shabbat, and they would normally be put on these rods. So the original halakha is that you cannot arrange the rods, move them on Shabbat. You got to wait till after. I mean, you just stack them up on each other, and you leave it like that. And after Shabbat, then you bring back set the rods and put each loaf on top of the rods. So you see that those rods are mukseh. Why are they mukseh? I mean, they're not even, they're klim shemachtor leheter. There's no reason, right? Even so, even that kind of utensil was prohibited. But that's talking about before the heter. Nowadays, they could do it. Maklot, what is that talking about? Titanan, maklot takin halakin hayusha manicho al ketefo al ketef chavero v'toleh mafshit. This is talking about preparing korban pesach. So when they prepared it, where's that picture? So what they would do after they slaughter it, they had in the Bet HaMikdash, they had these rods, and they would take rod, and each person would put it on his shoulder, and they put the animal in between the rods, and that way they would skin it in that fashion. So these rods, you'd use them when the 14th of Nisan fell out during the week. However, when it fell out on Shabbat, then you wouldn't use these rods because they were considered mukseh. Instead, two people would put their hands on each other's shoulders, and they would hang the animal from their arms, and that replaced the rod. And so you see that originally those rods, even though they're something that's for permitted use, you can use them. No, they were considered mukseh. That was talking about before the heter. Here, Rabbi Elazar Asa shachal liot b'Shabbat, maniach yado al ketef chavero v'yad chavero al ketefo v'toleh umafshit. But on Shabbat, that's that. They wouldn't use the rods; they would use their arms instead. So that's the second case. Gelostera ditnan neger sheyesh pirosho gelostera. You have a door bolt, right? The locks in those days was like a big bolt you put in, and it has a thick end at one end of it. Rabbi Yoshua Omer, Shomtam in the Petach Ze v'tola b'chavero b'Shabbat. I want to take it off this door. I want to lock the other door, so I can pick it up. I can move it to another door, another door in the courtyard. It's a different house, a different entrance. I can do that. So because he says it's not mukseh. He says you can. Sorry, the first opinion says you can drag it from one to the other. In other words, you can't pick it up. You can only drag it in an indirect way. Bitafon says it's like other things, and you can move them in the hased. So the first opinion that says you cannot move them, he was talking about, but he only said that before. That only applied before the heter, when everything was mukseh. But nowadays it's okay. The second opinion, Bitafon, the reason why he says you can move it in the chased, the question is the door considered going towards in or going towards out? If it's going towards in, then I'm moving it from my house and I'm taking it outside to the courtyard to another house. And so that's a problem. Whereas if it's already in the courtyard, then if it's considered out, it's already in the courtyard. Okay, and the last item is medocha hadamaran. Medocha is the mortar that we said above, right? That when we said you cannot move the mortar if it doesn't have anything in it, that was talking about beforehand, but nowadays it's allowed. That's yet another solution to that problem. Okay, so we have these 4 items and the different reasons why it's allowed. I think we should just finish until the Mishnah. Amar Abba mimai. Wait a second. You said the only way to explain these 4 items is to say that they were before the leniencies were enacted. And now they don't apply anymore. No, I can explain each one of them differently, and explain to you why each one has a problem. Even after the blows mukseh became more lenient, still these things are not allowed. Why? What's the reason for those golden rods that hold up the loaves on the shulchan? We put them there so that it doesn't decay. We don't want them all leaning on each other, because then there's no air. Then it's going to decay. So that's why we put them on separate shelves. Okay, but on Shabbat, there's just a few hours till after Shabbat. They're not going to decay in those few hours. So there's no need to fix them on Shabbat. If you needed to, you could, but there's no need to. That's why you don't do it. Ma'klot efshar kerebi el azar. And so also with the Korban Pesach, we can use our arms, like Rabbi Elazar said. There's no need to use them. So we're not going to make a heter if there's no reason to make a heter. Otherwise, we would. So Rabbi Yanai said that's talking about a case where the courtyard has no eruv. And so Rabbi Yoshua Sabar tocha petach kedifnim dameh, he says that inside the doorway, the doorway itself is like inside, and therefore I'm carrying it out and carrying it to another place, and that's why I have to do it dragging indirect way. And Rabbi Talfon thinks that the doorway is considered like it's already in the courtyard, and therefore it's permitted. So really, this law is more about carrying than it is about mukseh. And that's why that explains their reasoning. Medocha Rabbi Nechemyahi. And the case with the mortar, that I'm not allowed to use it for another purpose, that is following an opinion of Rabbi Nechemyahu, who said even something that I can use, I can only use for the designated purpose, but not for anything else. And so therefore, I don't have to say that all these Mishnayot are old Mishnayot. They're all from Barishona, from before the Halakha. Why would you have all these old Mishnayot that don't apply anymore? Rather, he prefers to explain all the Mishnayot as they are according to the current Halakha, and still you can find a different reason for them. So what you see here is that the laws of Mukseh are quite complicated. There's many different categories and many different reasons, and there's also different opinions within each one. And to add to all that, there's an evolution in many different time periods. But all that makes it complex, but also quite fascinating.